All right, let's start off with Indiana and Oregon. Oregon laying 1.5 here, total of 143.5. Jenks, we've talked about Oregon as one of those dark horse teams that have a great coach in Dana Altman. And surprisingly enough, Oregon has 8 quad one wins. But we've seen some upside from Indiana, who was not expected to do too much this year. So this is a tight spread. Normal total, I would say. Is there anything that stands out to you about this game?
Not really. I did a little handicapping on college, not a ton, but I would kind of follow what PJ said on this show. And PJ was on the show yesterday, and he was saying that, look, these are both teams that have a chance to win this tournament kind of under the radar, and Oregon has won 7 straight, so they're probably playing better basketball than Indiana right now. But also, we're seeing the money come in on the Hoosiers because this number opened at 2.5 and has now gone to 1.5. And PJ said yesterday, look, if the Hoosiers can get past Oregon, they can win this thing. So they're playing really hard for Mike Woodson in his final season. So there's a little bit of motivation there. I think I might take a look at Indiana on the money line at plus 110.
Ooh, well, I will argue the case for the other side. And we talked last segment about momentum and how much it matters. Oregon has a lot of momentum coming into this game. You talked about it, 7 straight wins coming into this game. Indiana has been pretty solid as well, winning 4 of their last 5. But for Oregon, I just feel like they have the more top-end potential. And if we talk about coaching matters, Dana Altman is a good coach. So I trust him a little bit more in this situation. And if we're talking about a pick'em game, like I'll go with Oregon that's, eked it out against some of the best teams. Like I said, 8 quad one wins for this Oregon squad. I think I trust them a little bit more to get it done. And plus 4-0 at neutral sites so far this season. So I'm going to go with the Ducks here. Quack, quack, baby. All right, next up, let's go to the ACC tournament. Number 1, Duke taking on Georgia Tech. And it's a line similar to what we've seen all season long for the Dukies. Yeah. They're laying 22.5 points. 143.5 is your total here. Jenks, massive spread here. But Duke is an absolute wagon that can score like 100 points. Are you laying it with the Duke? Blue Devils here.
I guess I would probably lay it with Duke. They've been they've been one of the better covering teams in the country all season long. They've won 8 straight. They've covered in 7 straight. They're 21-10 against the number this season, and Georgia Tech is going to be completely outmatched. They got smashed by Duke earlier in the season, so I know 22.5 seems like a big number, but I feel like Duke could probably win this game by 30.
Maybe this is totals, because obviously you can go that route if you think Duke's going to score a ton of points, but you don't want to be sweating 22.5 points. I would lean that direction because, like you said, great point there that the fact that they have been covering these numbers despite laying massive numbers is crazy, because obviously they're a market darling, a big public betting favorite, but yet they come into this tournament covering 7 straight games, laying massive numbers. 24.5 against Miami, 23 against Florida State, 18.5 against Stanford. Like, some of these numbers are insane, but Duke has the high octane offense to cover all these numbers. So maybe when the team total comes out, you could look at that, or just lay it with Duke. I can't make a case for Georgia Tech. All right, how about to the big 12-week go, testing my conference knowledge. Let's go to number 12, Iowa State against number 17, BYU. Iowa State laying 2.5, total 146.5. Jenks, I know both of us kind of like the dark horse potential of BYU here, but it's only 2.5 points. I was hoping for a bigger number here.
I've been big on BYU, and they've been one of the better teams in college basketball, I think, and kind of more underrated teams in college basketball over the past, few weeks. Earlier in the season, they were just trying to put it together, but now they have been a team there that they go really deep. They run 9, 10, 11 guys deep, which I think depth is really important this time of year. I think the flip side of that argument is a team like Maryland, which has an incredible starting 5, arguably the best starting 5 in college basketball. So how far can that athleticism take you? You can like both, but I feel like for a team like BYU, who doesn't have as dynamic of a starting 5 as other teams in the country, that depth can really come into play here. And when they get hot from outside, they're tough to beat. So I think I might take the Cougars here.
Yeah, I think I would lean towards the points. Maybe wait and see if you can get a better number. I do see that we have some 2.5s popping up and some other shops. But for Iowa State, we know the narrative on them all season long has been they are very good at home, but on the road, they're a lot more beatable, which, is most teams, but 15-2 straight up at home as opposed to 6-5 away. But I should say they're 3-1 on neutral courts. So maybe that gives a little bit of a nudge to me in BYU's favor. And plus, we've seen a lot of these conference tournament games that are a lot closer than people expect. So maybe it's going to be down to the wire. I think I'd lean towards the Cougs and a team that is riding some momentum coming in to this tournament. So I'll go with BYU there. All right, continuing our trip down the card, let's go to the SEC tournament here in Nashville, Arkansas, who we were just talking about at the top of the segment, facing off with Ole Miss. Ole Miss laying 3.5, total of 144.5. So we talked about coaching matters, and normally you'd say that's a point in the favor of Coach Cal at Arkansas, but like we were talking about in the last game where he told his player to intentionally miss when you're up by 3, I don't know about the decision here, Jenks, but maybe it doesn't matter if they're trailing in this game. They're getting 3.5 points. What do you think bettors need to know about this game, or is this one not going to make the card for you?
Yeah, this one isn't going to make the card for me. I'm not quite sure. I just didn't have time to handicap every single game on the card today, but I'm not quite sure exactly where to go with this one. I mean, I like the experience that Arkansas has with Coach Cal, despite that coaching. I don't want to say miscue. They ended up winning the game, but that questionable coaching decision
was weird
yesterday. And it was really odd. And Ole Miss is a team that's been maddeningly inconsistent. Like they'll just get blown out one game and then Ole Miss will come alive and can play with anyone. And Chris Beard is one of my favorites, has been a long time. And I just hate that we let him go here at Texas, but this is probably a no play for me.
I think that, or maybe you look at a total, because Ole Miss, like they can score points, but you're right. They're very inconsistent. And plus it'll be Arkansas's second game of the tournament. I wonder if that plays into some of these second round games at all. A team that's standing around waiting for another team. Meanwhile, a team is already warmed up. I understand in the later stages, it'll be, okay, this team has tired legs. Okay, this team's had a gauntlet when they had to, play in these games when the other teams have had, 1 or 2 game buys. But maybe Arkansas has a little bit of an advantage there because they're already warmed up to the rims, obviously here in Nashville. But I think I'd look towards the total, 144.5. I think both these offenses can get it moving. So maybe that would be the play for me. All right, Jenks. Texas and Texas A&M. Let me ask, do you think Texas stands a chance? They're getting 6.5. They're already warmed up. They're fresh off an upset, albeit a small one, over Vandy. It's a rivalry matchup.
I don't know. I just can't. I would have bet against Texas yesterday. I'm just so soured on what we've seen from the Texas basketball team this season because they started the year as a preseason top 25 team, and Rodney Terry is essentially on the hot seat. He's coaching for his job, and even a decent run, I think, in the SEC tournament probably isn't going to save his job. So I was surprised that Texas was able to get the outright win yesterday because Vandy has been so good against the number. But Texas A&M just has too many athletes, and the number is the number, right? 6.5 is a pretty high number for an SEC tournament game, particularly when you're talking about two rivals. But A&M has proven they can hang with anyone. They got that huge win over Auburn a few weeks ago. As long as A&M starts more quickly, which has been an issue for them, then I think they're fine here. So reluctantly, I would probably lay the 6.5 of the Aggies.
Too little, too late, David. Too little, too late. All right. So am I supposed to go on a spiel about Texas? Because it ain't happening.
Yeah.
I'm the cynic of the show. But it would be cool. Like, here's the thing about March. Like, crazy things happen. Did I expect NC State to go on a run last year? Absolutely not. I'm the most negative person you'll ever meet about their school. So, I don't know. It could happen, Jenks. It's March.
I mean, it could. There's a lot
pray.
of things that could happen. Look, it's a rivalry game, so that you do have to factor that into your handicap, right? Like, even though it's a conference tournament game, and yes, A&M is the better team, they're number 14 in the country. Ultimately, a rivalry is a rivalry. Doesn't matter whether it's football, basketball, whatever. So maybe that's something, if you like Texas, that you can factor in.
Yes, that or voodoo or praying or, horoscopes, whatever you want to choose to will Texas to a win today. Jenks would really appreciate it because he hates Texas.
I would.